In the news this week, refugee offshore processing debate continues as PNG's Prime Minister demands a closure deadline.
WA targets hydrogen as a potential fuel source as trials investigate its ability to power your home.
A new bid to rejuvenate WA's tourism with strategies to attract more international students.
Plus the giant leap for mankind 50 years on, the legacy of NASA's historic moon landing.
And we continue part 3 of the Left Behind series on youth unemployment.
That's coming up soon.
This is the Evening News with Ivan Leung and Danielle Staniskov.
Good evening. As Papua New Guinea Prime Minister James Marape meets with the Australian government, he is urging the government to decide a deadline for ending the offshore processing of asylum seekers on Manus Island. Refugee activists support PNG's cause as the 6th-year anniversary of the July 19 policy passes, but there are still no solutions being implemented. Taylor Hanna has the story.
PNG's Prime Minister is demanding a deadline for refugee offshore processing and said they would like it to be ended as soon as possible. Local refugee activists support these calls, commenting on the Australian government's lack of consultation and consideration of the impacts their decisions have had on the local PNG people.
But Australia, as we've seen through the offshore processing policy in particular, has never really let go of this and continue to exploit the land and the resources for their own political purposes.
It has been 6 years since the government's offshore processing policies came into effect. Michelle Bowie said these people need to be resettled in countries with permanent protections so they can begin to rebuild their lives.
Even 1 day, 1 month, 1 year is too long, and it's been dragged on for 6 years, which I think a lot of us never imagined at the time.
Thousands of people gathered Australia-wide to rally against the government's policy and call for it to cease immediately.
Imagine being confined to one place for 6 years and having all these opportunities denied.
Taylor Hanna, WAMN News.
Hydrogen could soon be powering homes in WA as it leads the charge to become a fuel source for the state. Trials into hydrogen are underway with the hopes it could help support WA's electricity grid, as researchers claim it could be cheaper and sustainable power source. Nelson Liu takes a look.
It's energy that's cleaner, and it could soon be powering homes in WA.
It's really a very promising future.
The state has hydrogen in its sights as Australia's first producer, gas company ATCO developing it at its newly opened Jandakot Clean Energy Hub. Solar power will be used to develop it for natural gas technology to reduce emissions and lower power prices.
It's very important for us to have a diverse blend of energy sources.
There are hopes it'll promote use of renewables if successful, support WA's electricity grid and efficiently power homes. Well, what would it mean for our younger generation?
So really for the younger generation, it's a great step forward to being able to enable renewables and continuing on a renewable path. So hydrogen, it's generated from green electricity, so there's zero carbon emissions in the production of it as an energy storage. Then when you burn the hydrogen, there's zero carbon emissions as well. Also, if you run it through the fuel cell, all you do is create water. So it's a completely clean fuel.
The state government is backing WA's hydrogen industry with a $10 million investment fund.
We're on the job. And this is a very, very prospective industry.
Energy researchers say it's sustainable.
All you need is sunlight and seawater. So, you can build these hydrogen production facilities on any coastline.
And if it works, it could be coming to your home. Nelson Liu, WAMN News.
The Study Perth 2019 International Student Ambassador Program encourages Perth as the first-class study destination and boasts many benefits to the community, tourism sector and the economy. With approximately 50,000 international students living in Perth, questions remain on how to boost these numbers and reap the associated benefits. Migration lawyer Lily Chen says this program is only the first step, as the government needs to change its international student intake policies.
You go to Hobart, you go to Adelaide, how many overseas students would go there without 10 international students, ambassadors? You don't need it. Why? Because of the education, international students' intake policies are different.
Study Perth Executive Director Phil Payne said research shows every 4 or 5 international students create jobs across all industries.
If we want to position ourselves as an outward-facing global city, we could harness the power and influence of our international student community far better.
Fewer Australians are owning their own home, but more home buyers have mortgages. New ABS data this week has revealed home ownership has fallen from 70% in 1998 to 66% last year. But mortgage holders are up to 37% from 31% 2 decades earlier. Mortgage burden also rose over 2 decades to 2017 to 18, from just under $350 per week to just over $480, as home ownership fell to its lowest level since the ABS began recording the data in 1994.
After Perth was struck with a horror mass slaughter in September last year, Anthony Harvey has become the first person in WA to never be released from prison as ordered by a judge. The 25-year-old was sentenced in prison with no parole after he confessed to murdering 5 members of his family, including his wife, mother-in-law and 3 young daughters. It was detailed Harvey has planned his crimes 11 days in advance, writing sinister entries in his journal. Anthony Harvey remained in the house for days after the killings and had arranged the bodies under blankets with flowers and sorry nooks nearby. Justice Stephen Hall said his actions are so far beyond the bounds of acceptable human conduct that they instill horror and revulsion into even the most hardened of people.
A new measure to stop Britain going through a no-deal Brexit by suspending Parliament has been brought in by British MPs this week, with 315 voted yes and 274 voted no. As the public expecting Boris Johnson will become the new British Prime Minister next Wednesday, the measure has created a setback for Mr Johnson as he's prepared to do a no-deal Brexit. The United States claimed that the Iranian drone has been shot down by the Navy after it entered the 1,000 metres perimeter on one of its ships. The conflict happened at the Strait of Hormuz as tensions between US and Iran escalates over increased sanctions. President Trump stated the drone was destroyed after the Navy took defensive action, but Iran's foreign minister says there was no information about a drone being lost.
50 years ago, science and space technology enabled the first Apollo lunar module Eagle to touch down on the moon. One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. The breakthrough this mission has led to is indescribable in the name of space exploration. Michael Collins, the 88-year-old commander pilot of Apollo 11, travelled to the launch site and recounted treasured memories of his famous once-in-a-lifetime journey. If you're old enough, do you remember watching the moon landing?
And that's our news for this week. We have the latest on our website and Facebook page.
Until next Sunday after 8, have a pleasant evening.
Good night.